Hi, so today I'm going to show you how to make this gooey white chocolate and pistachio marzipan brownie. It's a gooey chocolate brownie with a white chocolate topping, and on top is a homemade pistachio marzipan that's been crumbled on top. It's so delicious, and if you want to make it, keep watching. So what you're going to need to get going with your pistachio and white chocolate brownie is 70 grams of pistachios, 2 large eggs, 150 grams of dark chocolate, I use 70%, 1 tablespoon of cocoa powder, 190 grams of plain flour, and I've added a teaspoon of baking powder in there as well, 280 grams of caster sugar, 130 grams of salted butter, a handful of white chocolate, and 75 grams of icing sugar. So let's get started. What you're going to need is a heavy bottom saucepan, a spatula, and I've pre-greased my brownie tin. I've put the oven on to preheat at 180 degrees so that it's lovely and warm and the brownie will cook evenly and quickly once we're ready. What we do first is we're going to add in our butter. If you're melting butter, always put it in first before all the other ingredients, because this will melt first, and if you're adding something like sugar afterwards, it will mean that it doesn't burn and go horrible. So the butter's going in first, salted butter in anything I bake. So I've used salted in there. Then we're going to add our chocolate. So our dark chocolate, 70%. And then I'm going to melt this, and once it's melted on the hob, I'm going to add my caster sugar and then melt it a little bit longer until all of the sugar dissolves. So I've dissolved my sugar in my chocolate and butter, and now the next step, we're going to add an egg. Now, you can either let this cool fully before you add your egg, or when you add your egg, you gotta mix like crazy, because otherwise you'll get cooked egg bits, and no one wants scrambled egg in their brownie. So I'm just gonna go straight in. So in with the egg, and then mix it quickly. So I always use free-range eggs. I think not only is it kinder to the chickens, but it's actually kinder to your cakes. It makes the most delicious cakes. Happy chickens, happy eggs. Okay, so for the next egg, and this is the bit where it gets a little bit weird, we need to hold the tiniest amount of the white back, ready for our marzipan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just open an egg and let that separate. And the amount that's just come out of the top of the egg there is enough. And the rest of this egg is going straight into the brownie mix. So I'm just going to set this to one side. Also, if you want a cool tip on how to separate eggs, we did a video a while back, a hacks video. I'll put the link somewhere on here. Yeah, it's this really cool way to separate eggs, basically, using a bottle. So that's it, my eggs are fully combined, and now I'm just going to go in with all of the dry ingredients, the flour, the baking powder, and the cocoa powder. So they all go in all at the same time. Then we just fold these in. You really can't beat a good brownie. It smells so chocolatey. That dark, rich dark chocolate is so strong. Okay, so that's the brownie mix done. We know it's done because it's kind of almost looks like it could be truffle mix. Quite thick, shiny. And now I'm going to add it to my tin. So I've prepared a tin already. I've greased 2 sides, and then I've laid a paper bit through the middle, so that once it's done, I can just pop it out like this. And then you don't get those wrinkly edges either. Clean, out in one. So I'm just going to spread this all around so that we got even coverage in the brownie tin. This is probably going to rise right up to the top of the tin. We want a nice dense brownie. We're going to top it with delicious things, and it's going to make a really thick, chunky, lovely, delicious, scrumptious, thick, gooey brownie. So that's that done. You'll see it's kind of shiny on the top. Paper's there ready to pop it out. I'm going to go put it in my oven now that I've been preheating, 180. We're going to check it at 15 minutes, but it might need 20. Depending on how your oven works, it might take a little bit longer. While my brownie is in the oven cooking, I'm going to prepare the pistachio marzipan. So this is actually a really good recipe if you want to make truffles as a little gift for someone or just as a little after dinner treat. All you have to do different is at the point where we would sprinkle, you would form it into balls and dip it in chocolate, and honestly they are delicious. When I used to make chocolates, I used to do this recipe and it never failed. It's really simple. You need some pistachios. I've used a pestle and mortar because my food processor packed up. So we've used a pestle and mortar and made them into powder, but obviously if you've got a food processor, it's much quicker to just give them a blast in that. Then I've got some icing sugar and then that last bit of egg that I saved. Okay, so first I'm going to go in with my pistachio. So all of that goes in there, that is 70 grams. Then I'm going to add my icing sugar. All of that goes in there, that's 100. And then you just want to combine that so that it makes a sort of tasty green dust. And then this is quite nice actually, because the pestle and mortar hasn't completely broken it down, you've got some bigger bits, which is going to be delicious. So at this point, I didn't use salted pistachios, so I'm just going to add a little bit of salt. I'm going to put in a couple of goes of that. Pistachio and salt obviously go really well together. Without the salt, lacks something I think. But you can buy salted pistachios and it kind of gives that salted caramel feel to the brownie as well, so it cuts through the richness. Okay, so there it is. There's our pistachio powder. This would be good for topping sundaes, anything really. You could sprinkle that on any pudding and it would be really tasty. But to turn it into the marzipan, we're going to add our egg white. So I'm going to just attempt to put not all of it in. I'm going to put all of it in. And then I'm just going to mix that up. And you'll see it suddenly goes a lot greener. And you just want to keep going with it. I might have to get my hand in a minute. You want it to completely combine. It starts to get really green. It's really cool. I think because the icing sugar makes it look a bit pale, this is going to bring out the colour of the pistachio. There you go. So there's the marzipan. I'll get my hand in now. So this is the point where, if you wanted to, you could turn it into a truffle. So what you would do is you would take a little ball of it, you would roll it in your hands, you'd lay it out, you'd put it in the fridge, you'd let it set a little bit, and then you just roll it in into chocolate. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to leave it until our brownie's done, and then we're going to come back to it and we're going to crumble it on top of our brownie, and it'll be delicious. So I'm going to wash my hands, wait for the brownie to cook, and then we will assemble it. So my chocolate brownie is fresh out the oven and it is smelling delicious. It's very gooey. I can see by the way when you touch it, it looks all dense and delicious. So what I'm going to do now is I've got a tiny spatula and I'm going to cover it in I've melted some white chocolate, a couple of handfuls there. You don't need much. It's just to stick the pistachio marzipan on top. So I'm going to put all of my white chocolate on top. This is also going to give it a really nice crunch and a bite to the top of the cake, because when this sets, you're going to have obviously a hard chocolate on top. So all of that goes on there. So now I'm going to spread that. You just want to make sure it's evenly spread over the brownie. Another little thing you can do if you want is when you're baking it, actually put some pistachios and white chocolate chips in the brownie. There we go. So that's all completely covered. So finally, and this is the most exciting part, you take back your big blob of pistachio marzipan. This has gone really dry, so as it's been setting, it's dried out, so it's a lot easier to do the crumbling with. So you just want to take your bits and just top your brownie with this delicious, it's like chewy and it's got kind of dry, crunchy edges. It's got a marzipan taste to it, but it's nicer than marzipan because it's made with pistachios. And the saltiness of it really goes well with that dark chocolate brownie. So I'm going to use all of that marzipan. But if you don't want quite as much, you don't have to use as much. But I like to pile it on because this is a real treat cake. It's not like a little tiny dainty cake. This is a slab of delicious, rich, marzipan-y, salty chocolate deliciousness. So there we have it, that's all placed on top. And I guess the thing you want to see now is cutting into it, the delicious gooiness of it with all the different layers. So I'm just going to wash my hands, and then I've made myself a lovely cup of tea, so I'm going to have a slice. So that's it, there's my white chocolate and pistachio marzipan brownie. I'm going to enjoy a slice now, and I'm just going to show you how utterly delicious it looks when you break into it. That gooey chocolatiness with the white chocolate. As you can see, one bite just isn't enough. I'm going to go and finish this with my cup of tea. If you make this recipe, share it with me with the hashtag #BakingWithAlana. I'd love to see what you come up with. And don't forget, it'd be so lovely if you'd like and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.